What's good, everybody? It's your brother, Man Black, the most dangerous and the most toxic black man on the internet. And I am black up in your face again with some more pro black commentary. So, I wanted to talk a little bit about something interesting I saw online, and it actually comes from a couple that I normally enjoy watching, and actually a couple that I endorsed on this channel. And it's from the TNT podcast. It was a husband and wife, and they react to either comedy skits or they react to different kinds of music. And I've always very much appreciated seeing them on their channel. But very recently, they started reacting to Tom and Sowell videos, and I've warned black people on YouTube about that. Okay, I've told you about this before. It's called goofy grooming. At least that's the name that I have coined for this type of thing. Okay, is I talked about it maybe damn near a year ago, where I talked about these people, these black content creators on YouTube being groomed by their white bigot audience to basically believe in this ridiculous extremist version of white conservatism, which is basically just white racism in an open sense, basically, right? With liberals are a little more secretive in how they present their racism to the community. But I mean, conservatives do it as well, and it's usually a lot more open, and it usually harkens back to a lot of the doctrines of black inferiority. And you have to be careful out there when you have these little minions like Tom and Sowell basically just regurgitating a lot of the BS that's come from these white think tanks or these quote unquote white philosophers or, white socialists who take a look at black people, who spend all their time looking at black people and black culture and trying to decipher what's going on with black people, and just basically it always winds up to them pointing the finger at black people, saying that whatever bad happens to you, it's your fault. It's not our fault. We have nothing to do with it. Everything that happens bad to black people is your fault. And basically, I saw TNT podcast basically reacting to a video that basically says that. And the video is literally titled Reaction to Thomas Sowell, Black Culture Keeps Blacks Down. And they're not the first people I've seen react to this. I've seen other people reacting to it, and I've started like seeing it pop up on different reaction channels, like even some of the other black reaction channels that I enjoy watching. I've seen them reacting to the same video, and some of them got their eyes bugged out where they're looking like a minstrel show, where their eyes are bucking and they're looking at this video as if Thomas Sowell is some great illuminary and someone who says something that they've just never heard before, right? And you have to be careful of this type of brainwashing. And I've warned black content creators who do reactions that you can't let your white audience groom you into nonsense. And there's stages to it. That's the funny thing. Like, I've noticed there's very specific stages to this, but they start off where they'll suggest different types of music for you to listen to, and then they'll slide Eminem in there, and they'll get you to say if you like Eminem, then they'll slide certain types of rock music in there. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that, just listening to that on its own, if that's what you want to listen to or react to, or just listen to a different type of music. I'm not saying there's something wrong listening to rock music, because I've listened to it too, okay? But not in this context. I listened to it on my own without someone having to suggest it to me. I sought it out myself. But for these people, they get it suggested to them in order to get views on their channel, because if they watch what their audience wants them to watch, that's better for their channel, right? Better for the algorithm. And that's why there's so many different reactors reacting literally to the same thing over and over again. There's no diversity in it whatsoever. But they start with the rock videos, then they'll say like react to this comedy routine, and the I've noticed that the gateway one is for black people or for black content creators is the Chris Rock N words versus black people. And basically your white audience wants to see how you react to that. They want to see if you're going to be laughing at all the N-word jokes in that particular comedy skit. And basically what they want to, because they, in their mind, they have, this is their excuse to call black people the N-word, to say that there are quote unquote ignorant blacks out there that are different from other black people. And they basically want to see how you react to that. Now, if you actually go out and ask someone like Chris Rock actually has some issues with that joke because white people kind of took it and turned it into something else that it wasn't supposed to be. That was almost kind of like a joke that was supposed to be amongst black people, but it's taken on a life of its own, and to the point where it's become detrimental to all black people. That's the sad part. It's like you can't, now there really is no differentiation between the sort of quote unquote N words and regular black people. We all get kind of painted with the same brush. And that's, white people have a tendency to take things there anyway, because that's how they see us all anyhow. But that seems to be the joke that is like the gateway to this type of mindset. That they might send you, I don't know, some other, like someone like Ben Shapiro, or, it's easier to avoid sending just the overtly white racist conservatives anymore. So they'll just send you the black ones, like they're black lapdogs. And Thomas Sowell is one of the top ones. It might start off like Candace Owens or Larry Elders or whoever, but Thomas Sowell is their man. That's the Negro that they can depend on to push their bullshit. And he's one of the ones that is very, I won't say adept. I'm going to say he's very consistent with pushing this whole idea of black culture is the problem with black people. And what he defines as black culture is always very shaky. Like I've heard other black males sort of repeat and regurgitate what Thomas Sowell says. And like for a while I used to wonder, where are they getting this from? Why do they think that this is black culture? But then like I found out that Thomas Sowell is the source of it. It's this whole idea that somehow all black culture is based around gangster rap or living in victimhood and all this other bullshit, right? And even in this talk that I'm going to play the audio from here, it starts off where, Thomas Sowell is basically saying how, black kids are better off today because, when I was young, things were a lot worse. Or when someone like Dr. Ben Carson, things, his life was a lot worse, but he still achieved this great success as a brain surgeon. Okay, fine. That's fine. And you having success individually does not negate racism or white supremacy. That seems to be the dumb thing that a lot of these fools don't get. Or let me say this, because I truly believe that these black conservatives, they know this. People like Thomas Sowell, Candace Owens, and Larry Elders, they know this for a fact. That's why they always focus on the individuals. It's because they're trying to brainwash you. And their white counterparts that taught them this bullshit, they also know this. Okay? There's always going to be individual success. There are black people who were individually successful during slavery, but that did not negate how the race was being treated overall. There are black people who were individually successful during Jim Crow. That did not negate all the Jim Crow laws and the laws that were against black people back then. You understand that? And it doesn't negate the treatment that black people as a whole get right now. So I'm going to get to that towards the end. But what I want to concentrate on right at this second is this little sound blurb where Thomas Sowell is basically talking about a part of his book, he's being interviewed by this white male, and he talked about a part of his book where he mentions the quote-unquote black culture. He calls it the black culture that existed in Germany after World War II. Was so like a lot of black soldiers, they had mixed children over in Germany, and they found, but was studying these mixed children, because in my opinion they're not black, they're mixed, and that's completely different than being black in America. But they like to conflate a lot of things in this discussion. However, they found that apparently these kids are all doing exactly the same as the white children in Germany. So like the education standards are all exactly the same. They all achieve the same grades and everything. There's no slip down, or there's no lacking in the intelligence quotient of the black kids in Germany as there are here. So let's listen to this little part here, and I'm going to pull apart the nonsense that he's talking about, because really what he responds to this whole thing makes no logical sense. But we're going to listen to it so there's no confusion as to what he says or what this person is talking about. So let's listen right here. I'll just play the audio because I don't feel like playing the video. I don't like seeing his old sour face. Thomas Sowell is one of these Negroes who looks like a corpse all the goddamn time. But I don't know what it is about some of these old Negroes who are supposed to be the educated class. A lot of them look like someone just dug them up from somewhere and reanimated them. But let's listen to what he has to say about the so-called smart blacks in Germany and why they're so much better than the Negroes here in the United States.
Of the particular geography, you run through the whole list of them.
You cite in Intellectuals and Race, you cite an observation by the intelligence expert, IQ scientist James Flynn.
So for one thing, let me just say this: Thomas Sowell doesn't have any original ideas of his own. He always has to cite shit from these white guys. That's why I would say go read what the white guy said and just skip over what Thomas Sowell had to say. Like, go look at his books and go look up where he sources this information from. Because if you're listening to him, you're basically just wasting your time, because he's taking information in bits and spinning it to fit whatever nonsensical ideal he's trying to push out there. But don't waste your time with the parrots and the lapdogs. Just go ahead and read what the master has to say. Go read what the white boys have to say about this. But he's talking about this study done by this white man about the black kids in Germany, quote unquote. Let's listen some more.
By the intelligence expert, IQ scientist James Flynn, that just stopped me cold. After the Second World War, you've got large numbers of American troops remaining in Germany. For that matter, there's still several tens of thousands there today. And both black and white American soldiers had children with German women. And Flynn discovered that those children growing up in Germany showed no IQ differences at all. The black kids and the white kids, the same. Quoting Intellectuals and Race, Professor Flynn concluded that the reason was that the offspring of black soldiers in Germany, and now you're quoting Professor Flynn, grew up in a nation with no black subculture, close quote. Which means what? Which means they experienced exactly the same expectations. Is this the...
No, the expectations are external. The culture in which they grew up was not the culture in which black kids grew up in America today.
Right. So
there's no gangster rap.
The fuck? What does any of that have to do with gangster rap? There was no gangster rap in America either, Negro. When the black soldiers came back from World War II in 1945, there was no gangster rap. There was no rap music, period. Yeah, there might have been some black people rapping on some of their records, but there was no rap music as a whole. There was no hip hop. There was no hip hop culture. So he says or the white man says, because there's no black subculture in Germany, that's why those blacks were doing well. And yeah, of course there's no black subculture in Germany. It's all German. and a war-torn Germany at that, one that's trying to rebuild itself, one that literally just survived being in one of the most racist white supremacist regimes of all time, in all history, that had literally had to change itself completely in order to survive. A lot of that Nazi stuff was outlawed because of how dangerous it was. It was shown how dangerous it was to be and how it basically caused the destruction of Germany. So you got a completely different culture going on there that is anti-racism. You come back here, the black soldiers who come back here to the United States, they go right back to the racism. You see? For one thing, because this is the nonsense. Like, I never had to read a book about the black soldiers' experience post World War II. You know why? Because I knew black soldiers who came back after World War II. That's right. Some of my black neighbors had served in World War II. So I got to hear the stories of how the white soldiers treated the black soldiers that were there, how they treated black soldiers like absolute trash, or how they treated Nazi prisoners better than the black soldiers that were serving the country of America. I got to hear the stories of black soldiers when they came back to America, found that absolutely nothing had changed when it came to race. They thought that if they served their country, that their country would have more respect for them and that their rights was, they would get more rights once they got back. Nope. Segregation was still on, especially once the white males started coming back. Once those white males started coming back from World War II, it was on and popping. They got all of the benefits. You see, those white men got benefits and got jobs and got homes and were able to create the suburbs after World War II. Black people did not get that. In fact, there are black men being murdered or lynched in their damn uniforms or being put in prison in their uniforms. You see, so that's why we started having the advent of a black rights movement in this country post World War II, because a lot of those soldiers thought things were going to change and they didn't change at all. That's what that movie, A Soldier Story, is truly about. That's what it was trying to explain to people in that movie. I know a lot of people watched that movie and they all love the character of Sergeant Waters because he basically shits on black people 24/7. But if you watch to the end of that movie, where Sergeant Waters has his breakdown, he realizes that what he is doing is not helping at all. What he is doing is not endearing him to white folks at all. He said how he changed how he talked, how he acted, and how he thought that World War II was going to make things different for black people, but they still hate him. And not only that, but he hates himself. That's all. That's what Thomas Sowell is. Thomas Sowell is Sergeant Waters. And a lot of these Negroes who claim conservative, that's all they've become, is a Sergeant Waters type character. A bunch of self-hating Negroes who think they're going to ingratiate themselves to white society by shitting on black people and telling black people that everything that's wrong with you is all your fault. This is why I can't really take Thomas Sowell seriously. And truth be told, the whole idea of examining black people or quote unquote black culture and saying that there's something wrong with black people and that's why they're suffering, that's not new. Okay, what Thomas Sowell is doing is not new at all. This is as old as America itself. The whole idea of either psychoanalyzing or social analyzing or medically analyzing black people and making it seem like, well, there's something wrong with them and that's why they're in the position that they are, that's as old as America itself. There are white scientists and white thinkers at the time. Really, they didn't think, but they called themselves that, who analyzed that, well, black people have certain types of physical features in their skull. Their head is shaped a certain way that's closer to the apes, and they're subhuman, and that's why they are better built for servitude. This is why they're so submissive and better suited to be slaves and not be free men. They can't even be considered human at the time. You remember that? That was part of this country's mindset. That was part of this country's lexicon and zeitgeist when it comes to how they view black people. Now, even within that, if you were a black person who fought against slavery, if you were someone like Harriet Tubman or Nat Turner, or even some of those earlier rebellions who fought on the slave ships, where they got like the story of Amistad, if you were one of those blacks, if you were one of those blacks that fought against slavery or fought to be free or always loved to run away from the plantation, then they said something else was wrong with you. They said you had drapetomania. They said you were a black person who was not satisfied with being a slave and you kept trying to escape. That you had a mental issue. You had a mental disorder. You see that? So whether you want to be a slave or you want to be free, there's still something wrong with you, right? Now, post-slavery, now you got the minstrel shows showing up, where it's already in America's most popular form of entertainment is degrading black people, making us seem like we're stupid or we're idiots, or they'd be making fun of the blacks from the South, making black people from the South seem just ignorant and don't know how to talk. They also made fun of black people coming from the North. That's where the Zip Coon Dandy comes from, who was quote unquote dressed nicely and would try to imitate white people's proper speech, but it would always come out the wrong way, right? Black people always shucking and jiving and dancing. They would portray black people as lazy. It's very interesting to me that no soon as we stopped working for them for free, we all of a sudden became lazy. That became the stereotype of black people. I always find that very interesting, right? But even though we, at that time, during the post-slavery, during the Industrial Revolution, we were some of the hardest working people ever. We were still being basically kept in slavery because of sharecropping. But when you get even further, further along during the Jim Crow era, during the turn of the century, there are still white people out there looking at black people and saying that there's something wrong with us. They even say something's wrong with our music, even back then. So this goes before the whole indicting gangster rap culture. They were saying jazz was horrible. Remember? They called jazz jungle music. And they said that it's not the same as our classical music. It has no real merit to it. So, it's just something that these black people do. And they really don't really understand true musicianship. But they're just making some noise out there. And not only that, it's dangerous to our young people because now our young people want to listen to it and they want to drink and they want to smoke marijuana. So we got to start making that stuff illegal. We got to have the temperance movements and prohibition and everything else. Everything that black people apparently are the spearheads of all of a sudden becomes illegal. You notice that, right? So even then they were saying something was wrong with black culture. Then during the time of jazz and blues music, which later became rock and roll, they were saying something was wrong with black culture. Now, there's always something wrong with it until white people take it over. You see, when white people invade that type of music and they take it over and they start performing it, then it's not toxic anymore. Then it's not a bad thing anymore. You see, and black people get pushed out of there and they have to go wind up creating something else. And then, when once white people take it over, that's not bad culture anymore. I guarantee none of the stuff that Eminem has done or any other white rapper has done is considered bad culture by people like Thomas Sowell. They would never say that, right? Even though Eminem talks about murdering his parents and, telling kids to tie their penis to a tree and jump off the tree and whatnot, that's never considered bad. But everything black people do is bad. And somehow gangster rap correlates to bad grades here in the United States. Even during the World War II time, according to Thomas Sowell, that's exactly what he said. The quote unquote black kids in Germany, they didn't have a black subculture and they didn't have gangster rap music like we have. So I guess according to him, gangster rap music was invented in 1945. So that's what I'm saying, folks. You can't listen to these buffoonish, water-carrying, boot-licking Negroes like Thomas Sowell, because that's all he is. A boot-licking, buck-dancing Negro. All right? He's going to say whatever makes white people feel more comfortable, and if blaming black people for everything that goes on with black people is the way to go, he'll keep doing it, because he gets paid to do that. Thomas Sowell is paid by a lot of these white think tanks to go out there and push that nonsense, and he kind of disseminates it through a lot of these other black conservatives. And now, with these reaction videos, it's getting disseminated even more. Now you got black people on a ground level who started out doing reactions to music videos, now are reacting to this old, sour, musty Negro, this corpse-looking Negro, and regurgitating the same bullshit that he's been saying for decades now. This is nothing new that's come out of Thomas Sowell's mouth. All right? It's not even new to him because this stuff is old from, I heard this type of bullshit during the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s from talk radio. I mean, at least people like Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity were just a little bit more open in what they were saying. They just came out and said it. Thomas Sowell tries to mask it under this fake veil of intellectualism, and there's no intellect there whatsoever. He just parrots every goddamn thing. He does no real study of his own. But let me conclude this video by just talking about, because at the beginning of this interview with Thomas Sowell, he talked about himself and Ben Carson being successful, even though they're black and they came from an earlier time, that they're still successful now. So systematic racism can exist because individual blacks like him and Ben Carson are successful. Okay, cool. Let's roll with that. Let's go with that premise, right? So, by that logic, no white man has anything to ever complain about in this country. How can I say that? Because I can see the mayonnaise mutants on social media now throwing a tizzy and having a fit and screaming and pulling the meth pipes out of their mouth for a second to yell at the screen because they're saying, of course, we white men have things to complain about. These immigrants are coming here and taking our jobs. These blacks are, getting affirmative action and taking our spots at these high-end schools. What else? Blacks are taking our jobs with their affirmative action, or taking our corporate jobs. They're even taking our entertainment. Now there's blacks and females and people of color on the screen playing our superheroes, and they're just taking everything from us, right? Okay, fine. But if white men are so downtrodden, right, and white men are struggling so bad, why are there white billionaires then? Why are most of the billionaires in the world, why are they white men? Why are a lot of the great startups that are happening in this country headed by white males? Why are people like Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Donald Trump, Warren Buffett, why are they at the top of their field if white males are oppressed? You see? So does the individual argument work for white men as well? Why are you complaining? Why can't you pull yourself up by the bootstraps and be just like Jeff Bezos? Jeff Bezos is a billionaire. Bill Gates is a billionaire. Why can't you work hard like he did and get $1 billion, white man? Why are you complaining? Affirmative action shouldn't even stop you. Affirmative action existed when Bill Gates was in college. He still became a billionaire. What's wrong with you? Why are you not working hard to create a new computer system so you can become a billionaire? Why are you struggling? Why are you living in a trailer park? Why is your family poor? Right? Why don't you have health care? Warren Buffett's able to take care of himself and his family. Why can't you take care of yours? You see? Why are your kids doing so poorly in school? Why are your kids getting so frustrated and killing their classmates? Why are your kids so frustrated with life and doing opioids and methamphetamines in entire communities? Why is that even happening in your communities? There are wealthy white men out there. Some of the wealthiest people in the world are white men. You said it yourself that even other groups of people around the world want to emulate white businessmen. Isn't that what Richard Spencer says all the time? That whether it be Japanese businessmen, African businessmen, Arab businessmen, they want to emulate the white man and be just like him in the way he looks and he dresses. Why can't you do that? Huh? How come these Arabs can, make billions on these oil fields and build these great communities in Dubai, but you're still living in a trailer park? How come your life isn't better? How come you haven't, strapped up those bootstraps and achieved something? Why are you struggling? Explain that to me. So if the individual success argument works for black people, apparently, then it has to work for white men too. It can't be one or the other, you see. It can't be, oh, we only apply this logic over here and don't apply it to ourselves. Why are not all white men successful then if there are so many white billionaires and billionaires out there? Why are they struggling? Why are they still complaining about their life or their jobs being taken away? Why are they complaining about their way of life being shortened, or why are they having these negative birth rates? Why are they having so much problems with drugs in this country? Living in the suburbs, which is supposed to be a nice place, right? It's not the inner city. It's not around these black people who are murdering each other, right? You're in the suburbs, you're safe from that. Why are you still having so much drug problems? Why are you still doing not just opioids, but you're doing every type of drug that you can get a hold of over the counter? You're doing dangerous drugs like fentanyl, causing death in the streets. Why are you doing that? If there are white males who are billionaires and millionaires, why are you stressing your life out to the point where you have to use drugs in order to, or that you think you have to do in order just to get by? What's going on out here? Why is your life not perfect? You spend so much time analyzing and overanalyzing and watching and seeing what black people are doing. What are you doing? Why is your life not perfect? That's what I want to know from people like Thomas Sowell. I know he'll never answer that. I know his minions will never answer that because it's not for them to answer. They're spending all their time worried about black people and black culture. That's what they concentrate on. And that is the end goal. That is the perfect storm, and that's the reason why people like him exist. Is to get white people to put all their focus on these other groups. Because as long as you're focused on that, you won't see how bad you're being screwed over by the people who are supposedly in charge of you. All right? So I'll end my video with that, and I'll leave you guys with that just to think on. And you folks can let me know in the comments section what you think about what I had to say in this video. Anyway, this is Mad Black, and I will be back on my foot on the devil's back.